On the last day of school, most of you get the question, what are you going to do with yourself now? And there's a lot of expectations that you have or people put on you to go and do something that is extraordinary. And maybe your parents tell you that you should go do something that is important, like get a job, go out and live a life. And everybody around you is putting all this pressure on you to become somebody and something. And in your mind, you put pressure on yourself to think about, what is it that I'm actually going to do today? What is it that I'm going to do tomorrow? And the ironic truth that nobody wants to admit is everybody that is putting that pressure onto you and talking to you and telling you that they need you to do something to make an important change in this world. The reason why they're saying that is they themselves did not accomplish something, and they feel insecure about themselves, and they do not know what the answer is either, but they get frustrated and they put that pressure on you. So all of this is a bit of a vicious cycle that we see repeatedly, and yet nobody knows what they're doing and nobody understands anything that is going on in their own life. I want to talk about that today, the sort of challenges that we face and that we think about, what is it that we need to do and where do we need to go? And the truth is nobody knows what the right answer is. Everybody is grappling at the world around them. So how can you actually figure out what you want to do on that last day of school? What do you want to do when you're 40 or 50 or even 80? And the truth is nobody's ever going to tell you what to do. The world is never ever going to say, this is what you're intended to do, and you're never going to be able to think about, this is the exact thing that I'm supposed to do. The only thing that you can do is to keep moving and keep changing every day, and looking at the world around you and looking at what this information is providing to you, and just go with it. I think we put unnecessary bounds on ourselves, and we think that we're somehow important in this world. And let me explain that each individual person, we think that we have some sort of intentionality, and we think that we can go from here to there. And the truth is many of us don't. We live within what is called a system or a social structure that prevents many of us from doing things, and then we get frustrated and we give up. Instead of thinking about intentionality or going from one thing to the next, I'd rather have you think about, what is it, one small thing that I can do today that is going to get me to a little bit better of a position tomorrow? And I want you to think about, it's not an extraordinary thing. I'm not telling you to go and do something that is going to change the world in any sort of way. Well, some of you might actually be going and changing the world and doing something that's really amazing. But instead, I'd rather have you think about, what is it that the best companies do in this world? And the best companies each year, I'm going to tell you how small this change is. It's 10% growth that they actually have. So it's a tiny amount. Every year, instead of making $1, they're making $1.10. And that's it, every single year. So do you think that you can possibly make a small incremental change every single day to get to a moment where you're doing something that's better in your life? Do you actually need to change every single day? And the truth is not. Many days it gets worse. Many days it gets a little better. And I want you to sort of think about, instead of thinking about the sort of imaginary big thing that you're going to accomplish, think about the smallest things that you can possibly do to make yourself a little better. Maybe it's brushing your teeth. Maybe it is doing something like getting a little walk or getting a little exercise. All these little things, they add up. And I want you to look at the world around you and say, what is it one thing that I can do that I can latch onto that is interesting, that I'm curious about, that I think is a perplexing problem? And many of us think of these really large problems and think, we can't do anything in that area. We can't solve that particular thing. It's too hard to actually make a difference, and so we give up. And instead, I'd rather have you curious and winking at the world, where you're looking at the world and you're thinking, hey, this is a big problem. And I know I can't fix it, but I can certainly think about a thing that I could be curious about in this area. All these huge problems, we can't fix it in of itself, but we can certainly be curious about it and ask questions and think about it and ponder. And if you do that enough, you ponder, you think, and you're just curious about, and pretty soon that becomes your whole life. Now, on the other side is a lot of people flip from one thing to the next. And as you finish school, you think that you have to do this thing, and then the next year you're on to something else. And a lot of people are going to say, that is wrong. You need to be focused. You need to have something. And the truth is those people are telling you that because they did the exact same thing. And it's okay to flip from one thing to the next, to be curious about many different things and to ponder about many different things. And it's hard to think about what is an interesting thing that you're interested in, because we have fleeting interests and we have many interests, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And instead of thinking about how can these be exclusionary, all these interests are little tiny interests that are separate, that are independent of each other. So think about how you can blend these things together, that you're doing something that is interesting and positive in your life that satisfies as many interests as you possibly can. You might be interested in music. You might be interested in finance. Wouldn't it be a curious and interesting thing if you started writing music about finance? If you started writing music about all of the challenges that you face as a financial strategist, or that you are in a financial career? I think it's curious and it's interesting, and it might be just the one thing that everybody resonates with. And you'll find an audience, you'll find a group of people that you can play around with and have some fun. I want you to think about all of these things where other people are making you feel that you have to do something and be a certain way. And it's often because that they don't know what the problem is either. But if you view your life as a short snippet in a very complicated and difficult world to understand, and you view it as something that you can actually make a positive difference, but the only way that you can make a positive difference is you get up and you do things that are curious, that are interesting, that you want to do yourself. And the only way that you could do that is just get started. So instead of thinking about these massive projects and all these things that you can possibly do on your last day of school, instead think about, how can I do little things? What are those little things that matter to me? How can I jump on those and have some fun? Life is short. You might as well go and do something with yourself.